Hey guys, sorry my eyes are a little watery. I was just like coughing and I like basically hacked up a lung and so now my eyes are watering. But this is the look I'm doing for you today. I am using the new Melt Cosmetics Gemini palette. When I saw her posting pictures of this, I was just like, you're kidding me. Like, this is the most gorgeous, stunning shade range of colors that I've seen in so long. It's so unique. Brands, I feel like I've been putting out the same old BS like for the longest time, like just plain warm colors, or just like they're putting out colors that have been like done a million times, and I'm kind of like, who cares? Like every time I see a palette, I'm like, okay, cool. Like it's not even, I want something unique, you know? And so when I saw this palette and all these like awesome greens and stuff and these really unique warm colors, I was just like, this is the coolest palette I've seen in a long time. I have to have it. And I'm also a Gemini. My birthday's in a couple days. So I like was like, okay, obviously this is for me also because it's Gemini. I'm a Gemini, like duh. But yeah, I mostly obviously got it for the colors and they're so beautiful. I'm absolutely in love. So I'm sure you know which way this review is going to be going, but before we get into the review, I am going to do this eye look for you and show you how I got these eyes. They are crazy intense. I know they're really dramatic, but I love them so much. For this look, I was actually inspired by Laura. She put out a look using this palette. Obviously, Laura is one of the owners of Melt, and she is the one who came up with this palette. And so I was really inspired by this look she did. Let me zoom in here on her eyes. It was this look here. It's kind of like a dramatic wing. It was super winged out. She had like a braid in her corner. She brought it in the inner part of her eyebrow, which you guys know I love to do. So I kind of took inspiration from that for this eye look. She had a different color in her inner corner, but I used the green from the palette instead of a different green because I wanted to use as many colors as I could from the palette. So for this look, I did go more in with the greens because I asked you guys on my Instagram what colors you wanted to see, and I got some comments and DMs that you guys really wanted to see more of the green colors, so I stuck more in that range. I didn't use these four here, so any of these, because they were the more neutral. I used this guy and then the black all the way down because I wanted to use those colors because I felt like they were the more unique of the palette. So this is what I came up with. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you want to see how I got the look, please keep on watching, and the review will be at the end after the tutorial. Okay, so to start off this look, I already have my brows on, and for that I used what I used in my last video, which is the MAC Shape and Shade Brow Tint in the color Spiked, which is the powder, and then the pen on the other side. So I did that. I put a little concealer around my eyebrow, and now I'm just going to conceal my eyelid as well as under my eye, and this is going to be obviously like my shadow base, as well as kind of helping to conceal any darkness I have around my eye area. And to blend that in, I'm using a Morphe G40 brush. And the concealer I'm using is the NARS Creamy Concealer. And I'm using the lightest shade that they make. Now, because I'm doing this style that you guys know I like to do where I kind of bring it into my eyebrow, I did make sure that I concealed like in between my eyebrows, and that's why I'm really putting my concealer down all around my eye, because once I do this technique, I'm not going to be able to go back and conceal around that area because then I'll cover up the eyeshadow I just did. So I'm making sure that all that area is already like done. Same with kind of out here as well, because we're pulling it out and smoking it out. I don't want to have to go back in later and conceal in that area because then it's going to mess up the shape we made with the eyeshadow. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going in with MAC's Shade Fluidline, and this is a dark green gel liner, and I'm just going to use this as a base. As I've said before, I don't like to waste my time, like, you know, like basically like gambling whether the shadows are going to show up dark enough or whatever. So I just like to kind of go in with a base sometimes first, especially for a really dark look like this, because then I know no matter what, the eyeshadows are going to come off really strong and intense, and then I won't have to work as hard kind of going back in with a bunch of layers to get it as dark as I want it to be. This is just going to make it so everything is dark from the get-go. focusing it mostly in the outer corner and then lightly blending it over. And I am doing a wing in this look because I love the winged shape that Laura had in her picture. So once I have that down, I'm going to take a clean 217 and just really buff the edges so it's super soft. I'm going to take a little more and go under my lower lash line as well. Okay, so now we're going to go into the palette, and I'm going to take this color here on the end, which is called Mochi, I don't know. And I'm going to use a BH Cosmetics blending brush. It doesn't have a name, but it's just their fluffiest blending brush. And I'm going to start by pressing this in the crease and then blending it in. And with this look, it is so like blown out, and it's not super like, you know, precisely in the crease. It's really blown out of the crease. So that's why I'm using a really big brush. And then if you see how I'm applying this, I'm just kind of like going in with it, you know, and I'm like really buffing it out. I'm taking a little bit at a time, kind of dabbing like once into the color and then layering it up. But I'm not going all the way to the inner corner yet. And you kind of want to buff that out as well. For the hairline, we're only going like, I'm just kind of going halfway and letting it fade out. And then as you can see, I'm going pretty close to my eyebrow as well. There's a little bit of space left that's a little lighter, but I'm going pretty close. Next I'm going with a shade at the top of the palette on the other side, which is called Luna. And that's more of a warm brown. And I'm using this one because I wanted to use more colors, obviously. I wanted to use as many as I could, but I also wanted some variation, and I didn't want this to be like too green on this inner part here. So that's why I went with the warmer brown instead. And that's going to be blending into the front of my brow. Next I'm taking a flat brush with the shade Fire OG. And I'm pressing this all over my lid, mainly focusing on the inner half of my lid. I'm then going to take Leo, which is the darker matte green, and I'm going to put that on the outer half of my lid. Now I'm taking a small blending brush with a little bit more of the Fire OG color, and then I'm just going to blend into that mochi color that we had down first in the crease to make sure that these dark greens are blending out really nice. And I'm also blending out into the wing a little bit. So now I'm going to go into the shade Bonnie, which is the black, on this really small brush. And I'm going to start packing that in the outer corner. And we're going again in that sort of winged shape here. And then slightly pulling it in toward the lash line. And once I have that where I want it, I'm going to go back in with this small brush and more Fire OG. And then I'm just going to blend out the edges of that so it blends really well into everything else we have so far. I'm going back in with a little more mochi and buffing out everything again. And then I'm periodically taking my concealer brush, no extra product on it, just kind of buffing around the edges of everything a little bit to keep the shape kind of going in the direction I want it to go in. Taking a little bit more Fire OG again, and I'm going to darken this inner corner here. So I'm basically just placing it kind of right here and this little bit here. And then I'm going to go back in with my bigger blending brush and really buff that in. So now the inner corner has just a little more depth to it. Okay, so now I'm going to start going under the eye, taking Fire OG again and then blending that first all the way across. And then I am kind of buffing it down pretty low as well. Now I'm taking my BH brush and mochi again, and that's going to go right on top and then a little bit below that first color I put. And then as I'm doing this, I'm making sure to link it up with the kind of wing we're making out here so that it all fades into it, everything really nice. Finally, I'm going to take a little Bonnie, which is the black, and then that's going to go in my waterline as my liner and then smudged down a little bit as well. You could totally just use regular eyeliner, but I like using black shadow in my waterline. Okay, so now for the fun part, we're going to do the inner corner. I'm going to take the color Goals on the same flat brush I've been using. I'm just going to wet it a little bit with some of my cucumber spray. And now I'm just going to pop that on my inner corner, putting it on the top and bottom part of my inner corner. And then just kind of a little bit onto the lid. And now to help the transition better from the green into just like my skin, I need to take something just a little lighter to blend it in. So I'm going to take the Anastasia Amrezy highlight. I didn't want to use the other shade, shimmer shade in the palette because it's a little too dark and warm for this. I needed something a little lighter to blend it in. So I'm just basically taking this shade and putting it around like the outside edges of the green. So that way the green is still really strong in the inner corner and I'm not taking away from the color, but if you look around the edges, it'll end up being more faded into my skin tone. I'm going back in with my concealer brush and just lightly blending around the edges of the inner corner just to make sure everything really softens really nicely into my skin. Okay, so now I'm going to finish off the eyes. For my lashes, I'm using the Lilly lashes in the style Mykonos with my MAC in Extreme Dimension mascara. I'm going to put that on, and then I'm probably just going to do my face because it's more about the palette and the eyes and stuff. I'll do my face really quick, and then I'll come back at the end to give you a final review. Alright guys, so here's the finished look. I'm totally obsessed with it. I feel like this palette was made for me. Like this is like one of those palettes where if there was ever a palette I felt like, I don't know, like sometimes I'll buy a palette and I'll be like, man, I didn't need that, or like, it's too similar to something I have, or whatever, like it's okay. This is like one of those palettes where I was like, I'm so happy I got this. Like, it's just, I'm obsessed, completely obsessed. So this is what it looks like. I'm sure you guys have seen it before. If you follow me on Instagram and watch my Instagram stories, you'll know that mine came broken, which sucked. But, I mean, they're fine now. It still worked out. It's all good. Gemini came broken, so I had to press it back in. It seems a little, like, sketchy. Like, it's a little bit, you know, I want to be careful with it because I feel like it's so soft it could probably fall apart again. So I'm being, like, making sure I'm extra careful with the palette. But this is what it looks like. Here are all the shades here. I love how it's got like your warms that it could totally be neutral, and then you got the greens, you got a black, which is nice. But I like that the neutrals aren't so like typical, you know, like the neutrals are still really unique kind of colors. And then obviously the greens are so unique. I've never seen a palette with these kind of greens before. These are kind of the greens that I've been searching for, like I've wanted in an eyeshadow for so long, and no one ever had anything like it. So when I saw that, this is kind of what made me buy the palette originally, but obviously these colors are also super nice down here as well. So I love the layout. Like I said, I love the kind of combo that you get of the neutral and the green. The black is insane, like the darkest black I've ever used that I have in my collection. I have a lot of different blacks. This is the absolute darkest black ever. I'm going to swatch them all really quick, and that way you can see how they swatch. Okay, so this is Luna. Here is Gemini. This one is Lorelei. And I'm terrible at swatching, so bear with me. Here is Polka Dot. This is Cupcake. Here is Bonnie, the black, and I am telling you, like, that is the darkest black of life ever. Next is Leo. This is Goals. Next we have Fire OG. And finally we have Mochi. So there are all the colors. One thing I noticed from the swatches when I originally swatched them for the first time is that Leo is super patchy in a swatch. It's not super intense or anything. It looks very patchy and thin. When I put it on my eye though, it definitely performed a lot better, as you could see from the tutorial. It was over a base. Like I said in the tutorial, I never really do eyeshadow without a base, so I mean, like, it doesn't, like, I'm not bugged about the fact that it doesn't swatch well, because I'm always usually going to use a base, and if it goes on the eye well, that's all that really matters. So swatches, I mean, take them with a grain of salt. They don't really mean a lot to me, but I wanted to swatch them anyways, just so you could see all the colors, because I didn't use them all. But as you can see, they're all super pigmented. The mattes, like I said, are really great. Leo is a little patchy, but the rest of them come on really nice. The shimmers are crazy intense. They're beautiful. I love the shimmers as well. So yeah, they're beautiful colors. I highly recommend this palette. I know it did relaunch on June 2nd, and I think she said it was limited, so I don't know if it's ever going to come out again, which sucks, because this is one of those palettes where I wish something like this was permanent, because this is what the makeup world needs in a palette, like this kind of color range. But overall, I really love them. I love the way that they performed on the eyes. They blended super well. I know I've heard some people say they've had some struggles with the dark matte greens being patchy and like tugging and not like blending and kind of like skipping, but I personally didn't have any issues with that. They blended out really fine for me. So I guess it just depends on kind of like the base you have down and your technique and the brushes you're using. But for what I used, they worked super well. So yeah, I give this palette a huge thumbs up. It is $58, which is a little pricey for an eyeshadow palette with 10 colors. A lot of palettes you get like way more colors, like maybe 15 or something like that, for a lower price tag from some other brands. So it's definitely more on the expensive side, but I definitely think it's worth it for the quality you get. And you know, just how well they perform to me and how unique the colors are. I feel like the $58 was totally worth it, and I would do it again in a heartbeat, because I definitely love these colors. Okay guys, so that is the video. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial and the review and everything. All my face products I have on my face that I did not show in the tutorial, I will have down below, so you'll know what they are. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time. Bye.